I'm trying to make it feel very special that you're getting access to something.
Are you communicating with your database as a whole all the time?
Never.
I'll try that. First two times I did it, the fastest of 200 views like I've ever had. That one I can't beat that variation no matter what I try.
So when you talk about like the sharpest tools for real estate agents right now, what comes to mind?
We were just saying horrible stuff about you, so you can watch the
Oh,
transcript
yeah.
after.
That's fair. Yeah, yeah.
Just
I like to
keeping you
start with that.
reasonable.
We should
Yeah.
lead with that.
Let's go back to everything we don't like about Taylor Hack.
The airing of
From the
grievances
episode.
followed by the feats of
Yeah.
strength, right?
Hairline, right? Everybody else has a 4 head. That guy's got a 5 head.
Get you some polish. Gotta be careful though with the too much lighting on it.
Yeah, there you go. That'll work out.
Yeah.
So Justin, how's your week going?
Good, excellent. It's 1,000 degrees outside, but it's steady Eddie. Other than my camera deciding to turn off, give me 1 second. I just gotta recycle that.
All good.
Change your power settings super fast.
Yeah.
All right.
I did buy a new
What about your week?
camera.
What's going down?
Ups and downs, it's kind of we haven't really talked about it on here too much. I'm making changes with Just Sell Homes. Just kind of structure packages, all that fun stuff. And today was a big week of that. So we're getting there. But yeah, pretty much on track to launch some new stuff, which will be fun. I'm pretty
Excellent.
excited. Yeah. How about you?
I'm making marketing that doesn't really look like marketing.
The
So
classic
covering up the
handwritten
picture
note.
of the client, but there is an actual client picture here that
Yeah.
is
Now, are those
is,
truly handwritten or like robot handwritten?
like Canva handwritten.
That works.
So this is like what I think about when I make these things. I know who I'm trying to talk about. Like these people on the wall behind me is my ideal client profile.
Yeah.
And so some of the stuff that I want to work with inside of this is one, those people are attracted to cursive. So we want to make sure that we're calling to our people. I also made the paper look like the standard issue Hilroy like notebook paper that we grew up with.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to make it a little messy. I don't know if many people kind of subscribe to that ugly yellow sign approach to marketing, but you make it so it doesn't look legit. It kind of looks a little sketchy. And then people are really interested. It like makes it feel more genuine.
So I do a similar digital thing. If you've probably seen the REM ad if you're an agent in Canada at some point of like my screenshot of the Apple Notes thing. That one I can't beat that variation. No matter what I try, I can't beat the screenshots. The same, it's like the digital handwritten note of like I've spent money getting designers to make things. I've tried videos, I've tried all these different things, and it all comes back to I just screenshotted my Apple Notes and then posted the picture and ran the ad. And by far my best one. Like it's crazy. But I love like every version of handwritten stuff. Actually, a funny one on that same idea is I read an article 2 days ago that's talking about like Gen Z and TikTok, and it was saying like one of the new trends is like everyone seems to start their videos with okay, so. And I was like, I'll try that. First two times I did it, the fastest of 200 views like I've ever had on like this new stretch of posting I've done is just adding okay, so to the beginning of what I post. And literally both videos that I've done, like within an hour up to 200 views. And normally it's like
pretty sweet.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, that's what everyone else is doing.
No.
Let's give it a shot.
Normally when they talk about the beginning of videos, they talk about the millennial shake.
Yeah.
So they don't even get their
Zoom.
camera sitting by the time they hit play and just like let it roll.
Yeah.
Or it's like the Gen Z breath. Or sorry, no, it's the Gen X breath, where we hit the record button and then we go, and then we might start with like, and so, or so many people ask me about, that's my favorite, not.
Everyone asks me about my morning routine.
Everybody.
My favorite.
Nobody asks you about anything.
Hey, Justin, how are you? And like, is that morning routine that's making your glow look that way?
I've DM'd some buddies of mine too, actually, from that. I was trying to practice it as you guys were talking. I was like, so today we're going to talk about, and like that millisecond pause brings down that wall of, is it a genuine post or not, right? Versus somebody that
Mhm.
literally they just press record and they're in the middle of a thought and you feel like you're with them, right? And it does the psychology of it. I love that you guys are talking about it because it really does make a difference. And talked to a guy yesterday. He actually corrected me. I misspelled something on a story I shared about the mastermind I'm doing this weekend. And I
Yeah.
told him, I said, but it got you to direct message me. And that's actually the point because I saw it and I left it misspelt because
Yeah.
misspelling things will actually often increase engagement as well too, right? It's fascinating the world we live in.
Yeah. But not if
Okay,
you
so
do it too much. You
something
got to
that
be like, I've seen people who intentionally put them in, but they start doing it so much that now it just makes them look dumb.
For sure.
Right? Like
Yeah.
there's a balance of using mistakes strategically. Of if I'm like everything has one in, now there's like, okay, you just don't know how to spell.
Okay, well, we started mid thought, so I'm going to recap. So when I was flashing this earlier, this is actually a letter that says we have a buyer in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
The only difference that my team is doing with it is that we actually do have a buyer and we're profiling them.
Yeah.
So it's something that we've got permission from our buyer to do, and it's just a different approach to door knocking. But mainly the reason that we're sitting down this morning is because we have Justin Konikow. I guess it's afternoon for you guys, just hitting noon here in Edmonton. And Justin Konikow, Prime Real Estate, is that the brokerage name?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And also Prime Media. You do podcasts, Prime People. What's the other one?
So Prime People is the main one, and they all kind of fall under that umbrella. There's Estates, Entrepreneurs, and Expressos, which you've been a guest on, Taylor, and I know Andrew. We need to line that up as well, where I go to them, go into their ecosystem, we drive around, drink coffee, and talk shop, right?
You know, it's funny. So when we were talking shop, Justin and I are sitting in a coffee shop wearing our Formula One.
Because you did that right after
T-shirts.
you're at my house filming my show, Taylor.
That's
Like you
awesome.
went from
I
mine to
changed in his bathroom. So
yeah.
like what this was like right from one to the other,
Yeah.
and both with like cameras because we did over a pint, and then
Yeah.
so I was literally like both drinking. All right, if Justin would have chose alcohol, this could have been gone awry.
And then you were actually cameoed in Matt Campoli's episode because I filmed yours, Campoli's, and was it Salerno's all in the same day. So
And
you've came
just
with us to Campoli.
so that was an experience just to roll with your crew. Because like when Justin goes and shoots something, like one, the people are awesome, right? Like Matt's awesome.
Yeah.
And he was taking us to a place that was just coming to the market. He knew so much about the building. You guys had great synergy, so the episode was going really well. But meanwhile, I was kind of standing just outside a camera shop for most of it with the people that helped Justin produce this type of content, and like the buy-in that they had and what they were trying to achieve through these networks of videos that you've made. It was just cool to see.
Yeah, it was fun. And I mean, we'd been friends for so long and collaborated that it was nice to spend time with you, right? I know our family lives and time is so precious, but I mean, I've learned so much from Andrew and Taylor both that it was nice to actually meet you in person because it had felt like we've been brothers for a long time, right?
I mean, you might not be able to see it, but that is the knife you sent to me. It's like lying right there.
That's awesome.
So
Because that was like a knife kit, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
sent me
man.
like a knife making kit. So I just sat there. So it was funny. I was in my old family room because we were gonna get rid of it. And I was like, I'll just do it here. It's like it's carpeted. So I was literally like filing and sanding and sawing and just a mess across the carpet. I was like, no one would ever do this in a carpeted.
Great client
Yeah.
gift. So the company's called
Yeah.
Man Crate, and you can have a myriad of gifts, and it sends them this package, which one is very difficult to open. Comes with a crowbar. There's a million like torture methods they have to delivering the package, but it's a little bit more meaningful because you can actually pick something that you think your guest will enjoy, right? So Man Crates is the website for that.
And I actually do use that knife fairly regularly.
That's awesome. It makes me happy.
I mean, to be honest, half the time it's cutting down boxes like cardboard boxes, but I'm still using it. But it's a incredibly sharp, like best sharpened knife I've ever had.
Amazing.
It's good quality. Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We'll shout out there. And we met originally on Clubhouse, I think. Like I think we knew who each other were, but I don't think we had talked much before Clubhouse.
No, I think you came across my radar. You were doing the stuff in Collingwood. I had heard about a couple of your events through people that I knew. Clubhouse, obviously the pandemic happened, the world shut down. A whole bunch of people that, still ambitious, driven energy in a chaotic market went in there and collaborated. And, it's interesting because like the peak of Clubhouse was very short-lived. There's still a group of us that are in there all the time. Like
I was about to
Taylor,
say, you two might be the only ones I know still using Clubhouse.
Yeah, actually, Glenda
We're
Baker
holding
is
up
there
the
on
app,
Wednesdays and
right?
a bunch of other people.
They have it just run just for us. secretly Justin owns it. He's going to keep it rolling as long as like we still show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really fumbled that acquisition bag when they could have.
Crazy. It's actually nuts when you think
8
about it.
employees valued at $4 billion, and you missed the bus.
Yeah. Well, how many people still like you guys use it? Like, are you using it today for talking to people in the industry? Are you in other things? Like, what
It's
are you guys
literally
finding value in it today?
it's just two groups for me. There's like a group that I hang out with on Tuesday mornings and on Wednesday mornings, and that's really my entirety of it. I haven't searched for anything new in, I'd probably say, over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget it exists sometimes. Wednesday at 8 a.m. we have the real estate morning show, 8 a.m. EST, depending on where you're watching this from. And it's Glenda Baker, Ginger Walker, myself, Taylor's always there. Andy C still pops in. I was looking at the numbers and it's still like 60 to 80 people a room, and it's consistent. And it's interesting because like we go in there and mastermind. So if half of me, I'll go in there and I'll audit what's the value of a team or a brokerage to agents, and I'll get input to go back to my leadership team. And other things is updating sellers, like how do you effectively update your sellers on a regular basis, because we're reviewing that internal procedure, or how do you onboard and hire admin, and we roundtable with agents that are actually doing it. I do like the UI of it. I think Elon actually has a massive opportunity with X. The UI of Clubhouse is so good because you don't have to be camera ready, and it's organic, and it's a very easy, free flowing way of holding space, and everybody gives each other that space. And it's, even when people get contentious in there, like the other day, Taylor, it's interesting how it's still, you can have rooms of hundreds of people and have very well managed conversations and debates. And it's one of the only forums I think that's,
right?
Yeah.
Like, can you believe that we're all like kind of coded for that? What do they call it on there? Town halls. Like, it's so weird where you will see specific voices, like you will feel the leadership, like you will feel the leadership vibes come from people. And you'll notice that the crowd will follow certain people and will look for them to contribute on certain things. And even the order of operation of how people talk through problems, there's a group of people that will be the first to kind of jump in and get things rolling, and they'll actually leave time for some other people to kind of develop their ideas. It's really unique.
Yeah. I did really like Clubhouse, but I always figured as soon as the world opened up again, it would go away.
And that seems to be true.
Well, and it was a very simple philosophy at the time, which was you can't do it passively, right? Like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you can watch TV with your wife and pull it up, do a couple things, or like you can be out, but like Clubhouse, you have to go, okay, there's audio, I got to go sit somewhere and do it. And like,
I would argue you don't. So like I literally the other day when we were doing it, I was on an e-bike driving down to the property that I'm hosting the mastermind at. I was on a deck. I've literally done Clubhouse on a paddleboard fishing. Like I've been in some pretty crazy places. And I see Jennifer home in Muskoka in the chat. And she was saying, she jumped in as a mastermind, found a lot of Americans too old school, thought instead out of the box, must have landed on the wrong club. I think the key, whether it's Clubhouse or Instagram or any platform that you're on, my camera just seems to have froze. So I'll actually just switch these.
I was typing out a message to you guys privately.
I'm a hand talker.
We can hear you.
You're good now. No, your audio was perfect.
Perfect. So what I was going to say is I really do think it boils down to the ecosystem, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 to 5 people you're collaborating with, 60 or hundreds, say in this environment. When you do find people that are there for the right reasons, and Taylor hit the nail on the head, they're there to truly collaborate and bring forth a marketplace of ideas. How Andy C implements his stuff in Silicon Valley is different than me, is different than Taylor. But I think the whole point of it is being part of a community like Jennifer in the comments. I now know who she is. Now she can connect with me, and it enables for a more cohesive ecosystem. I think where they dropped the ball with the app was they had a very small-minded mindset towards the growth of it that was very internally driven versus accepting the fact that there are a million different ecosystems and people are going to find the right ones for them, right?
Did give me an idea, which I'm just still debating when I'm going to do it for REM, of doing essentially like a daily morning show for the industry.
Cool.
Right? Like, but it's like more drop-in style where people drop in, you get content, then obviously that can be cut up a million ways, but it's less about
like, have you seen the one that the NBA does? That's like a morning jam. Man, sometimes I can't remember which the player was. He's not in the NBA anymore, but he has tons of access and he has a big round couch. And like sometimes they have 10 people in that room, sometimes there's like 3, but basically like from what they talk about in the morning, it ends up getting clipped and going everywhere.
One of my favorite NBA shows, because now that the Kelsey brothers blew up sports podcasts and now everybody is doing them, LeBron and JJ Redick have one. I don't know if you guys have seen this one or into basketball at all, but what I like about it is they dive deep into the game. So like they'll put out a scenario and be like, well, how do you, so like they're talking those like high level X's and O's, like if you're not a basketball guy, it's just right over your head. Like they're like, well, you got to like blitz screen through here and do that, and like you're like that. Like as a hardcore basketball guy, I'm like, yes, that's the stuff. Like I don't want we tried hard and we really made that one work, guys, but like let's keep going. No, like I want to hear the X's and O's of what was the thought of, okay, if he flared out here, that's why I went over here and did this and then that, and you're like, yes, that's what I want to hear. Like that really.
Yeah, well, I see that Joe Rogan struggles with that as well because on most of his content, he's like an engaged learner.
Yeah.
But in mixed martial arts, he's definitely like an elite expert. So then when he goes into the mixed martial arts realm, he talks so technical that he labels the shows now because some people that have limited interest in it won't engage as much.
No, outside of the odd clip, I'll be honest, to say I've never actually seen a Joe Rogan episode.
Well, I'm super stoked to see where you're going to take Real Estate Magazine. Like there's so many opportunities and there's so many great people in the industry right now that having something like a daily grind or something like that would make a lot of sense. So anything I can do to support it would be awesome.
There's some interesting options we're looking, like there's definitely a lot of things that were kind of in the works that are coming that we're pretty excited about. I mean, the first year of REM was literally just cleanup. Like it was wild. Some of the like I'd say at the end of the day, like most of this data and everything we had, we actually just deleted and started from scratch again. Because it was the only way to really do it properly. So now we're kind of in a pretty good spot with that. So now we're gonna start looking at growing up from there. Because like even like we're still using MailChimp, and I'm getting off MailChimp soon. Like no.
What do you use for a mass email adjuster?
I'm like, talk to me, Andrew. We use MailChimp, but I don't know if it's the most efficient. I use a combination of Follow Boss and MailChimp.
Just Sell Homes, I use ActiveCampaign. But I wouldn't maybe use that as a realtor. So like if you have Follow Boss, MailChimp will work. For REM, it's a different conversation though, because like the value of this, like the subscribers are not the clients of REM, right? Like it's the advertisers for the most part. So we're looking, and what we'll probably go with is a platform called Omeda, which unless you own a media company, you're never going to have. But the value of that one is it is a data first platform. So you own, and like you can start learning a lot more about users, like, and it'll start building profiles and be like, hey, if this group of people own Follow Up Boss and MailChimp, this person has 99% the same thing in common. They're probably going to want to see more content from Follow Up Boss.
Interesting.
So there's a lot, and then like you can pair that in with live events where like if they go to like these 3 breakouts, that probably means they're interested in this stuff over there, and it starts tracking that and figuring it out. So you can actually give them more relevant content that suits their needs. So it's like,
but now we're talking about stuff that's much larger than most of the people that we're talking to are going to engage with. So when you talk about like the sharpest tools for real estate agents right now, what comes to mind?
Just use your phone. I like to try and simplify things as much as possible when it comes to especially creating content. Like and that's partially why I've been doing it on mine, is I need to.
I'm just talking about mailers though.
So mailers, like
right
out
now,
of the gate,
what's better than MailChimp if you say you're going to get off
if you're starting out, MailChimp's great. There's some limitations to it. I'm not a big fan of the actual design tools that it has to actually build in one, because like it just doesn't fit. I really like ActiveCampaign for that, but again, if someone's starting out, I wouldn't use that. But my recommendation for tech stack is Follow Up Boss and MailChimp. And most people, that's what we're setting up.
Okay, so with Follow Up Boss and MailChimp, when we're talking about mailings, Follow Up Boss can do up to 1,000 per day, and then MailChimp can take you beyond that. So with database size, you can do mass emails from Follow Up Boss, and you can also pop them around in different pools. So Justin, when you talk, like when you communicate with your database, are you communicating with your database as a whole all the time?
Never.
How do you break
No.
it up?
Yeah, so I mean, I have two ecosystems really, right? There's Prime Real Estate, which is our company. We do residential, commercial investing, agriculture. Each of those is segmented by asset class and territory. And then I break it down to Justin Konikow, say personal brand that's more geared towards real estate agents, entrepreneurs, right? How I do what I do. And there's like a meld of the two where, for example, the Prime Mastermind series, the one I'm hosting this weekend, Andrew, I invited you. Obviously, Taylor, I'm sure you probably would have got an email or something. Anybody that's anybody that's a referral partner has been on my episode of Prime People, past clients, investors, builders, agents that have sent me referrals, agents that have earned their way into our ecosystem by being good human beings, get invited to these private events that I host. This one's at a 2.2 million dollar 1.7 acre property. We're doing 2 live podcasts. So I have 2 secret guest speakers coming down from the GTA and fly fishing lessons off the dock from like a world-class fly fisherman who's on like every YouTube channel you can imagine about fly fishing. So when I target that database, I don't just email all 40,000 plus people in my CRM. I will go in and segment lists, and I will send out an email with the framework to like the general people I just mentioned, segmented by tags. But then I'm doing one-on-one invites by reaching out to past speakers on Prime People, past clients, referral partners, and sending them a text. Because here's an example. I sent out 800 invites, and then I maybe got 10 registrations. And then I sat down and I actually went one by one sending text messages, and we are pretty much at capacity now. And I think maybe we have 10 spots left, and there's only 100 spots available, right? So it really gives you an idea of how you can use your database segmented to reach the right people, but how then it gives you some clarity on, okay, out of those 800 people, here's your top 400 prospects, and start working the prospects effectively on a one-to-one basis, right? So that's how we use it.
Okay, let's go micro and close up. So when you list a new property, specifically to people interested in real estate, you might also do your national network, but let's just say we dial this down and say like you're just talking about marketing one property within looking for buyers.
Yes.
Do you use like mass email as part of that?
I do twofold. I'm looking actually out in the main office. Jamie Dodd's an absolute weapon in the commercial space, and I are working on an industrial building in London, 675 York Street. Start.ca was acquired by TELUS, amazing industrial building. And if I'm going to market that, I'm going to go into my CRM and I'm going to market it to 2 types of people. One is anybody that expressed interest in any commercial properties in London, Ontario has been tagged, and I'm going to send it to them. Maybe St. Thomas as well, because it's within distance. And then I'm also going to go into the list of agents in my market that specialize in commercial that are also tagged, and I'm going to message them. Now, when it comes to messaging from here to the GTA, I have a list of about 5,000 agents that are commercially focused, but I actually spent a lot of time getting their permission to market to them on that email list. So I didn't just download their emails and pump them into this list. I actually asked them, hey, if I get opportunities in London, would you be interested in getting information or referrals? I got a bunch of jackalopes that sent me messages that were super rude, but some really good feedback from people that are like, yes, keep me posted. I focus on industrial. So I will use my follow-up on CRM to target those people, but I will use my MailChimp for the permission marketing, because I always want to give people the option to unsubscribe. And I find that that's where I reach out to the people that maybe don't know me as well, but have put their hand up in some way. My CRM is your earned relationship, where you want to be in my CRM because you're going to get first access to everything I do. So that's how I think about it in my brain.
Absolutely. And Andrew, when you're taking a look at like sending out these mass marketings and for calls to action that work well, some of the conversion methods, like Justin saying that like, some of the people that light off that list may inquire or also just show interest inside of there without actually inquiring. Like you can see clicks and opens. Is that right, Justin?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like we'll do that a bit. I was talking about this today with someone else where we were looking at like putting certain things in newsletters that we know like anyone who clicks on it, you follow up one-on-one with them. So they didn't necessarily have to engage, but if they're clicking to learn more, like even a Just Sell Homes email, like, yeah, it's great if you're clicking on some things, but if we have time and we see someone's clicking on like learn more about our offerings, I might pick up the phone and call those people, even if they didn't specifically reach out, because it shows a little bit more intent. But if you're just
But
clicking
wait a
on
second,
like,
you don't just send an email and offers come in.
some that does happen too.
It does happen, but that's not the way
Yeah.
that most of us would
No,
work it.
we're doing it proactive. Like but I design the emails where they just come right in, right? Like we'll send out emails that are designed to get a reply, and that's
Like
the
I
only goal
remember
of that email.
when you're marketing to agents, one of the things you noticed was really attractive to agents that you've told me before was that when anybody gets in trouble, when
Yes, so
anybody
that's
violates
QRM1.
marketing
Like,
rules and gets fines, you found that that was something that was like a good attention grabber for an email. So
yeah,
that's like one of the utility parts of an email, but then there's all these like levels of conversion. So you were talking about there's open rates, which
yeah.
is did they look at it? Now you can tell you've got a human when they click anything. That's not just like
Not always now though, because some of the Apple stuff auto clicks all the links. So then, like, there's complications to that, right?
okay, but without getting too much into like the
Yes,
cat and mouse game
not
of
to get
like
too technical.
create a new
But
virus,
yes,
create a new
I
antivirus.
yes, I care about open rate to a degree, but similarly, Apple opens up every email that comes in anyways.
So that's not very reliable. So open
So
rates are
it's
not the
good as
only
a
indicator you'd want to
baseline.
use.
Is it going up and down? But if I see like right now, REM for our list of just under 30,000 right now, because I've done a big cleaning lately. I think we're right now at like 55% open rate on that list. And I don't look at, okay, is it 54? Is it going up? Right? Like I know it's not actually 55% true opens,
Right, because if
because
it was true opens, 55 would be amazing.
yeah, but it's not. I mean, it is we do have a very high open rate in
Is the
general.
benchmark still like if you could measure true opens, you'd be shooting for 40% plus?
I'd still be aiming for 50 plus
Mm.
for REM. Now, REM is in a unique position of it's the only trade publication in Canada. I'm not competing on that side.
Yeah, but
Right.
what about from the real estate aspect? Like real estate agents sending
Yeah,
out
like I would, well, so it depends on list size, right? Like if you're
ah,
a lot of people come to us with like 500 to 1,000 people in their database, so they're going to mail. If that's your list size, you want to be over 60%, no matter what. Right? Like if you're at 20% and your list is 500 people, they don't want to hear from you. Like that's basically what they're telling you is I don't care about this person. And so you need to do things to get that up. Like, I mean, I don't know if you know him, Justin, but Taylor, obviously you do. Like Ravi Singh, have you ever talked to his marketing? He's got like 80% open rates. And
no
so
kidding.
it's the Mr. B strategy. He gives away things every month in his newsletter. So he'll be
Totally
like
interesting.
Raptor tickets, iPads, things like that.
That's amazing.
Hey, what's the deal with the open rates connected to animal photos?
Great tool. I don't know if Justin, do you get our Tuesday email, Justin?
I do, yes.
So we've included the baby animal of the week at the bottom of every single one. And
I was wondering about that.
yeah, so originally it started there's like an evolution here, which was early COVID when everything was negative. We were like, let's just throw some positivity into our newsletter. And it was based on like the John Krasinski Some Good News idea.
Sure.
And we just like would link to good news stories. And then like early COVID, vaccine development was like very good news stories. And then like the tone around that changed very rapidly. And we started getting like angry replies if we'd report, like before it was like people loved that. And then like and we're like, let's just stay out of all news. That's not really what we're doing. Let's just throw a puppy in there. Everybody loves puppies. And so just as like kind of a fun thing, like internally, like we'd throw a puppy up onto like our Slack and people would vote of like this is my favorite baby animal you threw in. And then we started throwing at the bottom of the email of like just something to brighten your day. And the idea was like we're always going to leave them smiling. So if they get to the bottom of our email, they're going to leave smiling. But the amount of people since that just like in conversation would be like, I don't want to read your email every week sometimes. Like sometimes it comes in and I have no interest in reading it. But I always open and scroll down to the bottom to see what the baby animal is. And that's not like a one-off. Like we hear that talk where like we'll have team leaders be like, yeah, we got your email today. Like I remember one, it was Craig Knopfler, if you guys know him, great agent in the Durham area. He's like, yeah, screw you. I forwarded your email to my entire team just because like that cute baby polar bear you had. He was like, guys, check out this baby polar bear. forwarded it to his entire team because of that. So like we've started like anecdotally a lot of stuff like that, and our open rates kind of have gone up and stayed more consistent up since we switched to just baby animals. So at the bottom of every email, we just put a baby animal. Usually it's a puppy, but I mean I think our polar bear was the most popular. There was a baby turtle one that did really well. But yeah, we just figured no matter what, let's leave them smiling at the end. And
So it
works
depends on
really
like
well.
what audience you're going after, but my suggestion is it's going to be tough to be relevant to everybody. So if you were getting low open rates on your emails, it might be because you're sending to too broad of a group and you need
Or
to
they didn't
send
opt in.
all.
Like some people will send a list to a 5-year-old database, right? Like I had someone recently, I'm like, this is all the question I asked. I'm like, how big's your database when we get on a new client? And then my follow-up question, which is the one I actually care about. If these people heard your name or ran into you in a grocery store, how many would know who you are?
Mm-hmm.
That's the list you want a 60% plus open rate on.
Yeah.
Is that segment.
So the rest of your list may not be established enough, or what Justin was saying is getting permission to be in people's inbox is kind of the thing now.
Yeah, so like I would do that larger group, send them like a welcome series and make them opt in for my new regular newsletter. Right? So like
Justin, when you do this as part of the like residential real estate, what are your conversion methods? So like, is it people get the email and have to call or engage you back, or do you see who is engaged with the content and make call lists? Like, where's the line of sales and marketing here?
It really depends on what I'm trying to accomplish, right? So like new development right now is one of the toughest spaces to be in, and we do have a number of builder projects. So what we're doing actively is pulling old leads that we've had and creating call lists and going through those call lists with very simple scripting. That is essentially the 9-word email strategy that Andrew gave me that made me send him the knife in person, right? Where it's like, hey, Taylor, are you still in the market? Essentially. And I'm going to get 3 answers. I'm going to get, don't ever call me again, loser, which happens like 1 out of 1,000. I'm going to get, no, I'm not in the market, which will lead to me saying something along the lines of, oh, is it because of interest rates or you haven't found the right house? Many times I'd say half those people are actually in the market. They just don't know it. And then the third type of person is, yeah, I'm still in the market, which is a hot prospect, right? So marketing wise, like Andrew was saying, I think it's really important that when you're working your database or your marketing, that you are trying to elicit a response in the initial marketing that you put out there or the outreach. And the way that I like to do it is give them enough information to make them want to work with you. Like every communication is almost like an interview showing them what it's like to work with you. So for example, if you're interested in a lakefront property in Grand Bend, I may respond to you and say, hey, Taylor, you still looking for a property in Grand Bend? And you're like, yes. Like, amazing. I've got a few off-market properties that you might want to be aware of. And there's some erosion issues that you might want, to keep on your radar. I'll send you some options. Now I have your attention and I'm probably going to get a response because you want to know where the erosion issues are and you want my off-market properties. I'm not sending you the addresses saying, here's 3 off-market properties I have and here's the stuff about the erosion issues. Because like I said, you need to earn the relationship and the mandate with me. But I'm also realizing that we're in a very different world where agents' expectations are to sign a buyer up in the first conversation. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Agents that think they can just set up a portal for a buyer, the buyer finds their own property and they open the door, those days are long gone. So every communication, to your point, Taylor, verbal, text, or email, is me basically showing my market knowledge or why they might want to work with me, and then trying to elicit some sort of response to let them put their hand up and say, yes, let's take it one step further and see what this relationship looks like.
Okay, getting over the threshold of marketing and sales, in my mind, it always looks like a situation where marketing cues the problem people need to solve, but then you withhold giving them the information they think they want until they get connected to you, and then you actually find out what they really need and help them from there. So it's important that in both situations, we were using examples here, you were both talking about something that was likely a problem that the audience didn't know that they didn't know. That's how you establish yourself as an expert. As soon as you can go 2 levels deep to when somebody's like, man, I didn't even know that could be a problem. Now they need you as a guide.
This year,
But
I've been
so many
talking about
people
it.
will ask for things that they don't need, and then if you supply it, they just turn into dust, right? Like if you say, hey, I have a list of foreclosures, and then they say, can I have that list? And you're like, here you go. Then the next conversation is never. However, if you were to do the same thing and then they were like, yeah, can I have that list? You'd be like, oh, great. Can you tell me a little bit about what the best foreclosure would look like for you? And you start that conversation. That's that threshold handoff.
Yeah.
How is it like when you say running a simple script, it sounds like you set these things up regularly. What would you describe as a simple script? 9-word email is the one that you used. Is there any other variations that you like?
It's always the same. I operate in frameworks. I don't even like the word scripting because I'm trying to teach a skill to, say, my team, or intentionality when I sit down to do my prospecting time. And prospecting is creating content or sitting down and actually hammering through a database. I think the intentionality is, what am I trying to accomplish in this session? Who am I trying to reach? And the framework, Taylor, for everybody listening, would be, first, getting an idea of who I'm calling, and are they still even in the marketplace? That's the number one question I always have. And I lead with that out of the gate because I don't want to waste their time. And the 9-word email strategy, I'll repeat it because it's so valuable. I was in Clubhouse with Andrew, and he's like, hey, if you have old leads in your database, this is a Dean Jackson thing, write this email. Take all your leads in London that you haven't talked to in 4 years, type in London ? In the subject line. And the email is, are you still looking for a home in London? And hit send. I did that 7 a.m. in the morning in that Clubhouse stream with Andrew. My inbox blew up. The response rate was fantastic. I cleaned a whole bunch of my database up. I think we ended up picking up probably 40 responses. I think we did 6 deals from that email blast down the road. Like, when I tracked it, I sent Andrew the gift as a thank you, but I took the same strategy to realizing that how many new agents, when they get in the business, a client asks them a question and they send them like a full-blown novel email. They do all this research they don't have to do. And I started treating all of my marketing that way and trying to get really simple, that my script is simply, are you still looking for something? If yes, what is it? And then if I'm prospecting hot prospects, I'm coming back to them with something valuable, because I pay a lawyer to tell me risks. I pay an accountant to give me tax advice. I pay my real estate agent not to send me 4 addresses and say, look at these. I pay them to say, here's 4 addresses and here's what I think about them. The here's what I think about them is what we actually get paid for, Taylor. So that's where my intentionality comes in, is really trying to create that dynamic with the leads.
Okay, so you touched on 2 things where you're saying that you want to give them more information, like provide them insight on some of these properties that you're looking at, and maybe also filter that, be more curating on how you bring them property. But the other thing you mentioned is like, if you have these long emails. So I find that when you look at general communication, friends talk to each other in bullets, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you ever see a long paragraph, she's going to dump you or you're about to get ghosted.
Yeah. Like 4 lines max. That's
totally
benchmark. We just never go more than 4 lines in one block.
So then when you get swept into that, where like somebody said, like, let's say they ask a question that is more than 4 lines long with the answer, how do you pick that up? Like how do you minimize this, or where's the line when it comes to communication?
I talk to people how they want to be spoken to. So like, I'll match their tonality, say, even on the phone. So if I call Andrew and he's being very dismissive of me and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of still in the market, send me something, like, I'm getting off the phone with him very quickly. And then I've earned the opportunity to send him something. I'm not going to call him, probably going to text him a photo of something and say, hey, I think this is awesome because XYZ, no address, so he can't find it himself. And then let him come back to me and say, yeah, that does look like a nice property. And, let's get out and take a look at it. Right. So like, I try and catch it and meet people where they're at. I made the same mistake a lot of other people did with those long emails. And some people, like, they do need a little bit more depth, but I'm going to break it into 2 conversations, because one is converting my database to wanting to work with me. There, I keep it super simple. Once they're in the nurture or the hot prospect stage, then I'm going to gauge based on how they're meeting me. If they are asking some comprehensive questions, I'll show them some sick effort, but I'm not going to just throw that at them and ask them to do homework for me and read this novel email, if that makes sense.
Like, I used to do that when I told this story with Taylor, I think on the first episode, like when I used to get a lead in when I was selling at the beginning, because I came in at the history degree, then I worked concrete forming, and I just made it up as I went and Googled a lot of stuff. I remember the first lead I ever got, they asked a question and I answered it. And I was like, okay, but if they ask that, then they need to know about this. Then they need to know about this. But now they're also going to need to know about like implied agency, and then they're also going to need to know the difference between custom. And I had a 500-word email to
And
my
then you ended up writing the book of How to Buy a House with Andrew Foliato.
Yeah, I then repurposed that into content. My first ever video I ever shot marketing was, what is the difference between a client and a customer on YouTube?
Amazing.
And it was awful. I remember to this day, it was my iPad. It was like an iPad 2 propped up against my real estate tech books for down here. So like looking up my nose at a very flattering angle. And it was just, what's the difference between a customer and a client? And I got my first troll comment on that one, which was fun.
I'm looking it up to watch it later.
I don't know if you could actually find it because it was on an old channel that I took down. I think it's still like hidden, so I could probably actually find it, but it's bad. Like it's one of those ones you look at it, you're like, that is an awful, awful video. Which is majority of my content that I put out at the beginning. That was video. I did really well writing. I like blogging was my thing back then, and it killed it for me. But different world.
So if someone had a database, like let's say that some of those agents making it past that 5-year mark, they've been doing reasonably in many markets. That means that they're selling 15 to 30 houses a year. And now they have this database that includes their sphere and some of these people that have bought properties and many people that have kind of shown them interest. If they haven't been using a lot of the times, it's just this like box of names. Like, how would you start with something like using tools like Follow Up Boss? Like, let's say I didn't have anything else. I just had that 1,000 limit. How would you start to give that database CPR and get it into motion? Like, have you ever seen those guys on TikTok that clean pools? And they walk up to the pool and it's just like green and slick and there might be alligators in there. And then they start to like do their stuff and slowly the water turns blue and it's amazing, right? Well, what if your database is like that gross pool? How do you get it into motion?
One sec before you answer that.
Yeah.
I found it. Turns out it was pricing your home. If you're looking at what that old video looked like.
Look at that kid. I love it. That's awesome.
It was just a child.
That's awesome. I want to see that video. Make it private and send me the link. The guys do the front lawns as well, Taylor, right? Like they'll go to some dilapidated house in the middle of nowhere and they'll start cleaning up the front lawn. I watch those videos all the time.
Yeah, they hook me in. I'll say that.
Totally.
A little bit at a time.
So many databases feel? They feel like you wouldn't want to go swimming in there. There might be gators.
Yeah. So my database felt like that, right? Like I think we were up to like 80,000 at one point. And after the pandemic, because online leads were just bonkers. I was spending $5-6 grand a month and we would run them ourselves too, right? It was crazy money and we were getting a lot of them, but a lot of them were useless. So like when I started in the beginning, I started just going through them and dequalifying them and getting them out, right? Cleaning up my database because I had actually done a podcast with Buck Wise. He used to work for Grant Cardone and he was in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and they would acquire marketing companies and they would literally just pay them based on how clean the data was. When he told me that, I'm like, well, that's the value of my database, right? So I started just one by one and really started just going through them and trying to qualify them one by one. But that's when I stepped back and I realized that I needed to think more strategically. So I remember I called Mike Heddle and then we met at Keyspire and we were going over a Follow Up Boss and his systems and my systems. And he really started with like the matrix, right? And thinking about compartmentalizing your database. We do residential, commercial, investment. We do agriculture. Here's our territories. And then I have like my personal brand. So we created a bit of a flow chart so that we knew where to tag and segment people. Then I would think about how do you operate with your database? And I don't care what database you use, you're going to have stage, you're going to have phone number, email, and tags. Those are probably the 4 most important components of any database. But if I ask most people, they wouldn't know what stages they have. I do, because we spend a lot of time building out our stages. You're either in my professional network with both of you guys are in my professional network, past client, active client, you're a lead, which is somebody I've never talked to, a hot prospect, a nurture, or a long-term. Everybody else is trash. So we simplified our stages, and then you got to do the work. And I think anybody, the stat, I was listening to this the other day in terms of like how many touches equal a prospect, how many prospects equal an appointment, how many appointments equal a contract, contracts to close. Essentially, it works out to however many touches you decide to do 4 days a week ends up being how many deals you'll do a year. So if you commit to 100 touches a day for 4 days a week, You could do 100 deals a year if you do that consistently for 52 weeks. So I started going through my database, and I have leverage from the team perspective. We have 30 agents at Prime, and my core team members were in it with me, cutting through, and we're still not there. We're going through a list right now for new dev homes that's 1,800 people deep, and we're going through and literally calling, touching, emailing, updating stage, deleting the trash ones, and you have to do the work. So I'd say just get the pool equipment, get a plan, and then make sure that you're intentional of doing the work every single day, and you'll get there.
Well, that's a big part of the growth at, like, this where I had a conversation with Mark Ferris that he was saying is like it's not that he does anything that much better than a lot of other people. He just does the boring stuff consistently. Like, it's not sexy, it's not fun to sit there and update all these contacts, but there's a reason it works. Like, you just got to keep putting in essentially that boring grind side of it, and it grows.
That's what I liked about listening to Faraz Zahabi. He's GSP, the MMA champion. He was his coach, and he said everybody around us is claiming that they do 100% every day, or that they try to get to 110% effort every day. He says we try to shoot for 80s.
Yeah.
At 80s, you don't get injured. You don't need time to recover. You can just keep doing them. As soon as you get closer to 100, you find out that athletes are off for 2 weeks because of whatever trouble that they've run into with their body. Now, when we take a look at how real estate rolls, like definitely a contact sport, so get out there and make contacts. And how many contacts you can make is your cardio. So in this big competitive pool, how well you'll do against others is really dependent on how many people you can actually talk to.
Yeah.
And then after that, you'd have a hard time not getting better at it so that you increase conversion.
Yeah,
Like
so
most
we're launching this soon, which is our like social selling playbook, and it's basically half of the playbook is just DM more people, essentially. Like, send more messages, have more conversations. Like, that's the entire
That's
process.
what they mean when it's a big funnel. Like, you do this much work at the top, and it should basically, like, once you've gone through one rotation, you'll start to understand your conversion rate and work down from there. But so many people don't get in that effort, or think that they're just going to be like, man, I'm just going to write all the Christmas cards. Like, I'm just going to do it at the end of the year. And all of those people I write Christmas cards to, just from that Christmas card, if somebody runs into them into the grocery store, what you mentioned, they'll be like, no, Taylor's my realtor. He sent me that Christmas card that one time.
5
That's
years ago.
crap. So like, develop your cardio. Every new teammate I have here, they start with doing 1,000 dials inside of 30 days. Because like, if we can't do that, what can we build on? Like, how slow is it going to take for us to build skills with you if you can't just get in and show cardio?
Yeah. And we do that a lot, like when we're talking with clients, like planning out their strategy of like, everyone in the database should get 3 one-on-one emails minimum a year, no matter where their stage is. And we kind of break them down into the 3 easiest ones to send, which is, we have a buyer looking for something in your neighborhood. Have you heard of any neighbors thinking of moving? Or we have a listing coming up around the corner from you. Have you heard of any neighbors thinking of move? Or do you have any friends that have been looking to move to the neighborhood? We can help you pick your neighbor. And then you don't want to send that too many times to people. So then we just do a thinking of you email. Just like, hey, I saw this, thought of you. And it's like, that could be as simple as a new mountain bike trail opened up, and they're into mountain biking. I just send them and that's where you have like categorize like their interests in the CRM. And you find like that thinking of you email, it's amazing how many times that gets responses that then lead to business. Because
okay, so this one-on-one stuff is killing it. So if we were talking about making that database like sizzle and pop, starting to like get it back from that green swamp, to start working through with like one-on-one emails that were based on that. So where I got to that project was sending what we call the 3 sale email. So it's a very basic email. All it says is, the subject line is, here's what's happening in, and then whatever your neighborhood is, your neighborhood will be there. And then it basically says, we're watching your neighborhood and we're excited to see how your family's been building equity. Here's 3 sales that have recently sold in your neighborhood. And the 3 sales that we send them are from our MLS system. And they're one that is above where we think their property is valued. We often help them buy the property when we're sending them to this. One is below, and one is right in the range. But they have no context, and they're not even comparables. It's just sale values that happened recently. And then below that, Barbara Corcoran did this, where she used to send out postcards in Manhattan, and it would feature the highest sale so that people would associate with her with the highest sale, even though it wasn't hers. Now, on most MLS boards, that would be non-compliant. But when I send somebody a link from my Paragon system, it's very similar to Matrix or Fusion or whatever you're on. It shows a listing and it shows my face. And that is compliant. So when I send it as a link, I send them one link that has 3 sales in your neighborhood, and then, oh, and everybody wants to know the most expensive one. Here's the most expensive one that sold recently, and I send them one other link. And that's my email way of saying, hey, do you want to talk real estate with me?
Yeah.
And it also gives me more metrics, because now I get open rates, I get clicks, or I get responses. So I have more ways to measure how that landed.
Yeah. That's what I'm a big fan of, like for clients, like when we recommend the weekly email out to their database, is the home of the week. But not just putting a house in there and being like, hey, check this out. It's exactly, we say almost word for word how Justin was saying it earlier. And here's what we think about it. And that's the part that matters to that, because you're training them how to also look at properties the right way.
For sure.
And you're proving that, like, this was a big one for getting over that hump with friends who they like you, but maybe they don't trust that you're an expert yet. Is then they're seeing, oh no, they know what they're talking about. Right? Because like you're constantly showing them, it's not just, hey, here's a listing, check it out. It's here's why it's a good deal. This is where I really like what Chuck Charlton does, where sometimes he'll also, and here's why you shouldn't buy this one. And he's not afraid to be like, this one's not a great deal. Like 100 grand lower, sure. And he'll send that out to his database. But he'll be very blunt about like, this is what you want to look at. This is what it is. This is good why. This is bad why. Go.
So on that note, actually, our investor database, we would send out a deal of the week to our investor database. And I had a section at one point called Run for the Hills. And I would feature a listing and explain exactly why you shouldn't buy that property. And then I realized that there were some agents, and the agent that had that property listed had snuck their way onto that investor list somehow by pretending to be somebody else. So I had to change some of the verbiage. So you got to be careful who you're talking to and how you're talking to them.
Chuck is very careful, and he even tells a story like he got pulled to Rico one time because the homeowner was on the list.
Yeah.
But everything was compliant, like because he's giving advice to his people and it's private, nothing's public. It's not like he takes it, puts it on YouTube, puts it on Instagram. He's just emailing his database of people with his advice, like he would if he was.
And that list was segmented with implied representation, so like we were completely fine. I talked to the listing agent and her broker as well too, and smoothed it over. But
this is a really good point. When you look at marketing, one to all or one to public is different than one to all in your database. One to some in your database, there's some real power there. Like if you were thinking about doing home of the week, do a one to all email that shows an example of home of the week. And if you also want to do it, why not to buy this?
I would do a 3 email series to welcome someone to a new segment.
And then invite people to want to be on this sub list, which is home of the week, so that then you're not increasing your unsubscribes. You're doing an opt-in. And that's what you really want to do with your email marketing, is you want to basically have a big list that kind of keeps the temperature going. And then you want to keep these smaller lists or scoop from there about specific instance, especially if it's timely. Like if there's a certain property type that's going to do well in your neighborhood or doing better in your market than others, then be like, hey, we got these are hot properties right now. Who wants on this list for more updates? And then pull them out of that list and then start to work your phone and get them over that threshold from marketing to sales.
Yeah. And you can do that through social, right? As well. Like on my stories, I'll do it frequently. Like we don't really advertise the Prime Masterminds publicly, but I kind of do because there's a bunch of people that I forgot to probably tag in my database where, I'll say it in my stories, send me a DM or often we'll do the same thing. Like, hey, if you want to get on our investor list, I'll talk once in a while to everybody. But our main focus on a weekly basis is the marketing where the permission marketing, right? Where they have put their hand up and they want to be communicated with in a simple, effective way that buys back their time. And I think that's how most agents need to think about it. You have to provide value to people the way they ask to be communicated with. They do not want to be sold. They want to shop with friends, right?
Yeah, like I find when I'm talking about things that like I might talk about in one of our private emails that go out, I'll just sometimes say a line like, I could give you the tip now, but I might throw in, oh, by the way, like I was mentioning this actually just yesterday in my email out to my private list, and then I give the tip. And like actually did this in one of the reels with Taylor. I gave the tip from you, which was shared 73 times by it. It was a pretty good little 50-second reel. But I was just like, as Taylor and I were talking about, and then just by the way, if you want a copy of it, and picked up another bunch of registrations from that one for people who are like, can I join these conversations? I want to I want to sit in on these, right? Like it's that simple. You just talk about it, but not in a like, come join this today. It's a, oh no, like as I was talking about with this group, or as I was doing this, you kind of just make them aware it's there and pique their curiosity, because now they also have to talk to you to get it.
Mhm.
Then you can start your conversation.
Almost like getting over the paywall and going from light to pro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you take a look at like that general conversion process, so you just talked about it, where you put out something and part of the measurement was how many shares it got, and then how many conversations come out of it. And taking this and moving it to social media, is that the same way you approach it, Justin? Is that you kind of scoop for things and see who would want to sort into what bucket?
I literally think of organic, social media, digital, paid media, all the same. If I walk into a coffee shop consistently every week and have conversations with those people, like I think of it the same way. I'm communicating with people either one-to-one through conversations that I meet with people in the day, or one-to-many through emails or social media. I think prospecting, like my number's 50. I like to hit 50 people a day and touch the lists I have, people that don't know me, nurtures, pod prospects, past clients, sphere of influence. And I'll cycle through those lists to hit my 50, but then I always post content every day. So that's my one to many. So on top of the 50 people that I'm touching, when I think of social media, Taylor, I am segmenting my communication on social media through my asset classes and my dynamic life, and trying to keep it interesting where I don't feel like I'm selling people. I treat it more like a vlog, but I also know the stats similar to Andrew of how many people are watching my stories, how many people are interacting with my posts. And the audience is consumers, buyers, sellers, investors, or agents. That's pretty much the two groups I talk to. So everything that I put out on social, I try to make it somewhat interesting to both sides of that fence. Either an agent like you is going to look at it and be like, oh, I see how he's advertising to that person in Grand Bend or London. That's an interesting dynamic. Or I'm directly talking to you and saying, hey, Taylor, can you believe that I heard this crazy story that happened with this agent that did this? The consumer is also going to be interested in that because that consumer has an interest in real estate. So when I do think about that, and I'm putting in my CTAs or my call to actions, I'm using the jab, 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 right hook methodology, where I'm really being careful about when I do a link or a pitch. And it's not every post, it's not every story. I'm trying to make it feel very special that you're getting access to something, which is very special because you can't buy access to my community. And I'm making that create the funnel so I can segment people. You interested in investment property in London? I have a certain place in my database for that. You're interested in Grand Bend lakefront property? You interested in commercial land acquisition, development land, ag? I have all of those set up as different lists, and I set it up differently in my right hook on social to take my general audience, and it's not a million people, but if every time I do it, 5 or 10 people DM me or click the link, that's how you build databases like Andrew's built, right? And it's not, there's no magic button. People think I'm just going to pay this company and it's going to solve everything and I'm going to have 50 listings. It's exactly what you said. Mark Ferris said it. It's doing the boring stuff consistently for long enough that being successful would be unreasonable.
No.
Yeah, in my mind, I see you basically like running almost like a farm where you're going and gathering seeds from social media and being like, oh, you're in this type of crop and you're in this type of crop.
Yep.
But then the real dynamic thing that I really want to draw attention to is how you make the online come offline. So you're going to do this 100 ticket event this weekend, and you're able to start to fill venues like that. Like that's where a lot of people don't understand. Like you may not be able to create one-to-one value by selling people real estate, but if you create content and look over your shoulder and see who's attracted, now you can set up shop. And Justin's like, oh man, there's agents that are attracted to my training. So are those seeds going to work for selling them training products, or are they going to work as like a referral network? What's the best way to use this in order to kind of develop a harvest? And I think that most agents, they gather seeds from places they don't know where those seeds go because they haven't sorted them. They scatter them. And the worst part is that then they wander away to go find other seeds, even though this is all turned into fruit over here.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's what I talk all the time with, like, even clients that come on that want lead gen. I'm like, all right, well, how do you get business out of your database? Because, like, at the end of the day, lead gen is to grow your
from the people that
database.
know you,
Yeah.
how are we going to possibly convince strangers to do this?
Like, I had a great meeting. So we had a client who, it was like 5-6 years ago, who called us up and to let us go. And they're like, so for the past 3 months, I've been doing an experiment that I didn't tell you I was doing. I was like, I'm all ears. Tell me. He's like, I have a ISA. They spend 50% of their time calling the leads you generate, 50% of the time calling our database. They got a higher return calling the database. So we're just going to go do that. I was like, you didn't need to do that for 3 months. I could have told you that day. You're going to get a higher return picking up the phone and calling your database than you are calling new leads off Facebook ads. It's once you've hit that point with your database, you need to grow it. That's what the leads are for, but you have to work that data. Like, until you have that nailed down, don't start adding a ton of people to it. But you don't need to do a 3-month experiment to figure that out.
Yeah. And are you just going to wait for your database to rotate again? Like, how are you going to put new people into it?
Yeah, it was like, it was such a weird, and this is someone who's doing a couple hundred deals a year. Like, I was genuinely like, I would have thought, especially you knew this. Like, it was one of those really odd moments of like, I thought that was obvious. And turns out it was not.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of Justin's time. We told you that this is going to roll until about now. But finding you is super easy. Like, the hardest thing about it is spelling your last name. And then off you go, right?
Yeah. You can't.
Do you have a phonetic mechanism? Like, I'm sure people ask you how to spell your last name all the way.
Say my name 3 times and pop. No, not really. I mean, you can call me Konikow. You can call me Potato Jeff. It doesn't really matter. I mean, ask Andrew or Taylor, and you'll find me pretty easily. I think the easiest way to communicate with me for sure would be Instagram. I respond to all of those directly myself, and that's where you'll find links to everything else. You did mention something that, you're like, when you're organizing your seeds, and you mentioned agents, a lot of them do ask for training and whatnot. And that's something I've never gone down the path of doing, because I want all the referrals in the world. So if you think of real estate in my area, that's what I want you to think of me. But what I am going to do, and this is, again, restricted access, is I talked to you about this, Taylor. Andrew doesn't know about it yet. I am going to do a private Zoom session going over time blocking. I've actually mapped out a wild breakdown of how I map out my perfect year, keeping my main buckets, which are my faith, my family, my fitness, my fun, my finances, mapped out and produce at a high level and run the team. I'm going to do that on a private webinar, not an in-person event, although I'd love to do it in person, for people that are associated with ecosystems that I co-sign. And Andrew, you've done an incredible job with REM. We've talked lots offline as well. I have a ton of respect for you. You can't buy me. You can't buy my cosign, but you guys definitely have it. Both you, Taylor, and Andrew, for sure.
Appreciate it.
And I want to actually bring you back.
Send out some invites for that if you want.
Yeah, for sure. I will make a note.
And I want to bring you back in the future to talk about more things about like co-signing, and also working with some of the other people that co-sign. Like, you're affiliated with Scott McGillivray. You're affiliated with who's that? Serhant?
Yeah, that guy, Ryan Serhant.
That guy. Yeah. So that's something that you've done. Like, you have a very polished network and position in our industry, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate knowing you. So thanks so much for coming to hang out with us. I'm definitely going to bother you to come again.
Next time you're in town, Taylor, let's all grab dinner.
100%. You guys are family.
September, I'm coming.
September. So. All right, we'll do a DM and we'll organize. Sure. Let's just organize a fun dinner with good people while you're in town.
I'm in. So Deal. Good. Let's do
Easy.
it.
All right. See you guys.
Cheers. See you guys. Have a good day.
Bye. You too.